A piece of the past is still with us in Hamilton Township, Monroe County, and it gives everyone an opportunity to understand what life was like over 200 years ago. The Fenner Snyder Robacker homestead is located at the corner of Route 209 and Neola Road in Scioto.
Well, I think it's a treasure that we have here on Scioto, along with the old mill. And I try to imagine it as it was without all the modern conveniences.
The property was owned by the Kellers. They never built this home. They never ran the mill across the road. They had their own mill in the little village of Kellersville.
Barnett Fenner bought the land here from the Keller family in 1796. He built the two-story stone farmhouse in 1805. It was an impressive house for its day, with the main bedroom being almost as large as the average rural home in the 1700s. Fenner also bought and operated the Brinker Mill, which was across Route 209 from the homestead.
It was built as the miller's house. In other words, it makes sense because it was in close proximity to it. And it follows the same architecture as 5 or 6 other buildings in Stroudsburg. It's pretty much Georgian in its shape. In other words, if you have a door here and you have 2 windows here, you're going to have the 2 windows on the other side.
And it was a huge status symbol. Status symbol in the era of this building had nothing to do with furniture, but the size of your home and the amount of land you owned was a status symbol.
Fenner would later sell the property to Frank Snyder.
As years went on, they divided the house in half. And there were 2 families. There were aunts and uncles living in this side, and there was the regular family living in this side.
The home would pass through the hands of various Snyder relatives before being sold to Ernest Taylor in 1939, then William Haney in 1947, and to Martha Amend in 1949. Earl and Ada Robacker would purchase the home in 1968. Ada's great-great-great-grandfather was Barnett Fenner, who built the house.
Earl Robacker and Ada Robacker had a home where Tox Island was going to be. And naturally, Tox Island forced them out. So then they came here, and they called this Stonehaven. And he was very interested in antiques. He wrote 3 books on Pennsylvania antiques. He was a PhD in English. He graduated from NYU.
Ada earned a Master of Arts degree from New York University. She went on to teach English in school. Upon Ada's death in 1988, the property was given to Hamilton Township to use as a museum, library, and exhibition hall for history programs and antique and art shows.
Earl and Ada Robacker decided, since they didn't have any children, they would love this to become a museum and a public building, but the township would have to maintain it. So they left a stipend of in excess of $100,000 for maintenance for the building. And the idea was that you would never touch the principal, but you'd use the interest to maintain the building and everything.
The house was renamed the Fenner Snyder Robacker Homestead and dedicated in 1992.
Larry Snyder, who was then the supervisor, came to me at school and he said, would you be interested in helping us get paintings for the first floor for the Fenner Snyder Robacker building, and we'd like to have you on the board if you would serve. And then you could tell us what steps we have to go through to get the paintings. I said, okay.
The first floor of the homestead serves as a gallery for over 24 paintings on permanent display. Each piece depicts an actual location in Hamilton Township.
We settled on these, which you see in here now. And everything went very well until a devastating fire.
The fire in January 1999 could have destroyed the Fenner Snyder Robacker homestead if it wasn't for the efforts of the Blue Ridge Hook and Ladder firefighters.
It appeared that the one wall by the chimney was definitely burning. A lot of smoke damage throughout the building to all the artifacts. Minimum damage with water. The cause of the fire was the oil burner.
The furnace had shorted out, came right up through here, burned all of this, burned the number of paintings that were in here, and completely torn out the floor. Fortunately, none of the antiques upstairs were destroyed. The firemen got here at the exact right time. Another 2 minutes, it would have exploded.
The first floor was restored at a cost of $60,000. Today, the house displays many artifacts from Monroe County's past. John Meixel and his mother donated items which fill one bedroom.
I have a great sense of history, and I thought these things were gleaned from Monroe County. Many of them came through the family or families, and I thought, well, this is the place for them to reside.
John was the curator of the Meixel Keller bedroom, which features many antiques.
This would have been the bedroom of what we would now call the grandparents, the people who had signed over the duties of the farm to their oldest son. And they had the luxury of the front room, the potty chair that they didn't have to use the outhouse. The oldest son, who was now running the farm and the mill, would have been in the bedroom next to this, because that bedroom looks out at the barn that is no longer there. We couldn't maintain the barn. It was falling down. It would have cost several $100,000 to restore the barn.
There's an interesting fact as to how the bedrooms were laid out on the second floor.
Well, very interestingly, across the way is a bedroom with no exit. The bedroom, you had to go through another bedroom that had an exit to get out, and that room was used by the hired girl. It would be the daughter of someone who had too many children, and they farmed out one of the daughters. And it was your responsibility to clothe her, to feed her, take care of her health and her virtue. So she couldn't get out the window to the next farm to see Isaac or Asa or whoever without going through another bedroom that was occupied by one of the members of the family.
A washstand sits in a corner, and there's a trundle bed under the main bed.
And then on great social occasions, which the biggest one being funerals, believe it or not, people came from miles and miles away and would often stay a week to a month. And in order to take care of their children, if they were infants, they slept in the trundle bed under Grandma and Grandpa's bed.
Today, the Fenner-Snyder-Robacker homestead is open to the public only on special occasions. It has been used for a variety of fundraisers.
Big fashion show we had was really great. We had 52 people and served tea, and it was just a nice affair.
There's another event that still draws a large crowd. Once a year, a cider press is operated at the homestead. It demonstrates how apples are crushed to get its juice, known as cider. Quite a treat in the fall when apples are harvested. This particular machine is a Dunning-Boschert cider press manufactured in Syracuse, New York, and purchased in 1880. It was used for over 100 years before it was bought and donated to Hamilton Township.
We brought it over here, and then through the supervisors and my son and my grandson, he needed a project for Eagle Scout. So that's how my grandson got in on it.
I acquired it for my Eagle project, setting up the plans and everything and presenting it to the Eagle board, and they approved it.
Mark Lippincott got the idea when he heard about the cider press from the late 1800s that had been used until the mid-1970s here in Hamilton Township.
The press was originally over in Bosardsville by Hanson's Quarry. That was the original location of it, so I figured with having it originally there and then relocating it here, it stayed in its hometown basically.
But by the time Mark started on the project in 1998, many of the cider press's parts had deteriorated.
So that was a big feat that we had to overcome, was to basically reassemble everything for the belting equipment and all that, and all the shifting levers and all that. We didn't have any of that, it was just rotted away, so we had to remanufacture all of those parts.
It took 2 years to rebuild the cider press. Today, it is flat belt driven. That is, a flat belt is hooked to a tractor which runs the entire operation. Apples are brought up a conveyor belt and dropped into a grinder. The apple mash is then dropped onto the press. Layer by layer, it is spread out. Then the tractor flat belt assembly moves the press down, crushing the apple mash. Juice flows out of the press and collects in a special vat. Once enough apple juice or cider is obtained, everyone gets a taste.
Fresh squeezed apple cider. We run it mainly because we enjoy it.
The apple cider press is just one of the many treasures you'll find from our local past in Hamilton Township.
So many old buildings being torn down all the time, and I think it was just great to have somebody interested enough in this to keep it going.
We can't lose sight of the past because it's part of our history.